Welcome to the Righteous and Real podcast, where real talk empowers real change. I'm your host, Emilio Aldana the fourth, and boy, am I hyped for this episode today. Episode 3 is with the one and only Jay Cordero. He's been a coach in the Central Valley, a fitness coach in the Central Valley for about 7 years now, has helped hundreds of people get the body that they want, and has helped dozens of people or hundreds of people achieve the physical health that they desire. This is one of the most genuine people that I've met, and he is always looking to help people in general. So I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. We had such an amazing conversation, such a authentic conversation, not just about fitness, but about life, about mental health, about anxiety, about all these things. So I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. And without further ado, let's begin. Let's go into it. That's usually one of the most difficult things to do.
Sorry to interrupt again.
No, what happened?
I started recording, but do you want me to stop so we can start over?
No.
Start over, but it's hey, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on. Yeah.
Oh,
we don't have any of that.
True, I know how we need to start that. Okay,
that.
cool.
Yeah.
No, real quick.
Yeah, yes.
No. So the reason why we were talking about all this stuff is because before we even started recording, we were having such a good conversation.
I know, it was really good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I should just start recording.
Yeah. No, dude, it's all good, dude.
So when you
just joking. Okay, what's up, you guys? I'm so excited to have my man Jay on. What's going on, Jay?
What's going on,
Jay
man?
Cordero, man. So
Glad to be on here.
JC Fitness, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Correct.
So we got Jay Cordero coming in with a Nike hat because he had a really good hair day today.
No haircut, so I gotta rock the hat for this podcast.
Yeah, dude, you're like one of the top fitness coaches in the Central Valley, for sure. Obviously, I feel like I got a stacked few episodes. We got Austin at 2 Aesthetic. Apologize for not shouting you out last episode, Austin at 2 Aesthetic. And then we got Jay Cordero, dude. So I'm so happy you came today. And I remember a few weeks ago I reached out to you to meet up because we had never had a conversation, but I had seen you in the gym. And I mean, people post about you, stuff like that. I'm like, I always wondered, who is this guy? And then I would look on your profile and be like, man, he's seems really successful. You know what I mean? So I'm I'm happy to have you on, and I'm just glad that you're here. So hopefully we can just chat, get to know each other even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man. I mean, like you mentioned, we met up a couple weeks ago for Dutch Bros, and we just got to know each other a little bit more, understanding each other's future when it comes to fitness, when it comes to just life in general. And I got to know you on a personal level, with your family and everything that you have going on. You're going to be a father soon, so congratulations on that. And just meeting up with you and sharing information, knowledge, value to the people that are watching, the audience. That's what it's all about, is helping our community and just bringing together good people and, sharing the amount of knowledge that we've accumulated over the past couple years and helping people, develop their mindset, their health, whatever it is that they want to develop, via a podcast or just meeting up in general, and helping each other out when it comes to our community. So again, thank you so much for having me on again, man.
Yeah, one of the first things you told me or you asked me when we first met up at Dutch the other week was you were just talking to me about church. You weren't even talking to me about fitness. You weren't talking about anything else. You were like, well, what church you go to? And I was like, oh, dude, this is perfect conversation for me. You know what I mean? So what church you said you go to?
I was going to RVC. So it's a River Valley church. It's ran by Pastor Gordon Hall. So shout out to Gordon Hall and Christian Hall, my best friend. They're the ones that brought me to that church, and I was going for a while. I need to go back again. So pardon me, guys, for not being there for a while. But they brought me to that church, and I was going to a couple of Bible studies with Gordon at Cup of Joy for a while, and it kind of opened up a new perspective for me in terms of my faith and spirituality. And it allowed me to dive deeper into who I am as a person, and the impact I want to make in others' lives. You know what I mean? And just putting God at the forefront of my life. And I think that's big when it comes to who I am as a person, because you see people on Instagram and you're just like, oh, this person does this and that, but you don't understand the core of that person and what their beliefs are and what they stand for. Morals, values, ethics. All you see is pictures and videos and all this stuff on social media that people post as a highlight, but you got to dig deeper into the person and understand who they are and what they believe in. And that's why the first question I asked you was about your faith, because I know you're a man of faith in God, and I wanted to get to know you on a deeper level of why you chose the church that you went to. And that was actually the first question I asked. It was like, what church do you go to? What church did you transition to? And I want to get to know those little things about you, because it makes you who you are as a man, and it develops your character, and just shapes you and your family to who you are today.
I met up with one of my pastors on Thursday, and his name is Keaton Baker. Shout out to Keaton Baker. He does really good photography work. He's also my junior high pastor at Cross City Christian Church. He made a really good point on, like, for example, yes, I'm a fitness coach, but I'm a Christian who's a fitness coach. I'm not a fitness coach who's a Christian. You know what I mean? And I think understanding that will actually give you way more meaning when it comes to your business. Because if you're like, oh yeah, I'm a fitness coach and I'm a Christian, you're almost putting your values, your morals, what you believe in after your business. And if you run your business like that, I don't think that's as productive as like, hey, I'm a Christian, and because I'm a Christian, I have these morals and beliefs and values, so I'm going to plan on running my business along with those morals and values. You know what I mean?
It's awesome that you say that, because you'll see a lot of like pro athletes now utilize their platform. And I think, who's that quarterback on the Texans? CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, every single interview that he does, he always starts with, "I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." Every single interview you see him in, he says that. The first thing he says. Yeah. He doesn't. They always ask, "Hey, how was your performance today?" I like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and that's a true example of what you were saying. He puts God at the forefront of his life, and football to him is obviously his passion, but God is his everything, and that's what's gonna.
And the Bible says that we need to be the salt of the earth, right? So we need to stand out, and that's something CJ Stroud's really good about. Is right when the interview starts, he addresses it. He's like, "Hey, like I'm a Jesus follower. Like God is my savior. Like he's like saying all these things, and he's like, you see some athletes who are like, oh yeah, I believe in my higher power. Or like, oh, God is good, or Christ. Like, no, like Jesus is my Lord and Savior. Like he died on the cross for my sins. Like say it out loud. You know what I mean? Because that's what's actually gonna like make people kind of look and say, oh, what is he talking about? You know what I mean? Because everybody says, oh, I thank God. But who, like, what do you mean by that? Who is God? Because a lot of people don't even actually, we're in our junior high ministry at Cross City, we're going through this series right now, going over like, who is God? Like what is his names? He has like a bunch of different names, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting that first conversation we talked about was just all like, in the beginning of it, it was all about, hey, like, what church do you go to? Who are you? All this kind of stuff. But obviously, on top of that, after we mentioned all that stuff, we did talk about fitness, business, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And so you're well known for a reason, dude. Like you've helped a lot of people in Fresno, California. Like I've had clients who have said, oh, I've worked with Jay, he's awesome. I've met people who be like, oh yeah, I've worked with Jay, he's awesome. I see people online because you post them and you're good about social proof, right? You're good about posting on the internet about your clients' progress and the progress that they make. So what made you become the fitness coach that you are today?
Honestly, it's all about and as cheesy as it sounds, it's all about just helping people become a better version of themselves. Because when I first started my fitness journey, I had very low self-esteem. I was a very skinny kid in middle school and in high school, and lifting weights and fitness really increased my confidence, and it allowed me to transition into a more disciplined person in all aspects of my life. And to see what it's done for me, I want that for everybody. And I know how much of an impact it can make on people's lives. So that's why I try so hard with my clients to get them to understand, like, this is a lifestyle at the end of the day. It's not an 8-week program. It's not a 12-week program where you just finish 3 months and then you're done. And then you go back to your old habits and your, previous lifestyle that you had before this. It's something that you want to last forever. And I'm a big advocate of that. And, when I post my clients and, I share their testimonials, these people are embodying that lifestyle. They truly want and want more for themselves, and they adapt it to something that, they can utilize for years on end, and they can, teach other people about it too, and not just utilize it for themselves. They can help their family members. They can help their spouse. They can help their friends, become healthier versions of themselves. So it's not just impacting one person. That person can be a domino effect to other people in their lives. So if I can impact that one person can impact dozens of other people based off of their message and their story that they had with me.
Ripple/butterfly effect of having an impact on one person and that transitioning to so many other people. And I feel like that's so powerful, you know what I mean? Because, like, I think as fitness coaches, we do it ourselves first, right? Like, the first thing we do is we learn about fitness, we apply it to ourselves, we get results, and then the first thing comes to mind is, okay, well, now what? Okay, yeah, you get stronger, you lose weight, you have different goals for yourself, but then you see how it changed your life. You're like, man, I was skinny, I felt this way, and then after I made all these changes, got all this discipline, got all these things from that fitness, it ended up having this other amazing effect in my life where I was able to gain confidence, do this. Like, it didn't just help, you looking good, because that's a good caveat to training hard in the gym and to eating well on a day-to-day basis. But what really matters is how that training, how that nutrition affects your life. I don't know if you ever read this book called Outwitting the Devil.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, so it's not it's not as much of a spiritual book as it sounds, but it's basically this author talking to the devil the whole time. And I don't know if I don't think it's actually the devil necessarily, but it might be like his version of the devil. But in the book, it was funny because it talks about the devil is basically saying, this is how I take control of humanity. This is how I cause people to sin. This is how I cause people to do bad and this and that. And like one of the devil's ways in that book was to feed people bad. And it's funny because the book was like way ahead of its time as well. And so he's like, I feed these people, like, and make sure that they are gluttonous over these bad foods, like processed foods, all this type of stuff. And what it does, it slows down their digestive system, it slows down their gut, and they're not as motivated, they're not as driven because of what they're eating and what they're not doing. And it's like, we're here to combat all that. You know what I mean? It's an interesting book if anybody ever wants to read it, but it's interesting because you're saying all that stuff. And I feel like that's one of the first things I thought of was, it's like, we're in a war, man. We're trying to fight that opposition. Like there's this whole industry of nutrition and food that's just trying to shove stuff down our throat. Like, it's fine, have this, have that. And it's like, well, all that stuff slows me down and actually makes me not a good person, you know what I mean? And not a productive person.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, just the food industry in general, like, there's fast food restaurants on every single corner of the streets. You have McDonald's, every mile of Fresno. You have Starbucks everywhere. You have all these fast food chains that are surrounded by us. It's the convenience factor now. And, we are slave to convenience. Our phones, we're a slave to social media because it's instant gratification. We look at our phones and we see the likes pop up and we get this dopamine hit every single time.
And we don't even realize it.
We don't even realize it. And little do we know, it's destroying brain cells over time because we're just constantly screen sucking. We're constantly, or not us in general, but people in general are eating fast food every single day, making them more obese, making them unhealthier. Slowing down their metabolism, and their gut health is poor. So I think a lot has to do with just being a slave to convenience. You have these DoorDash apps now. It's crazy to see all the innovation that we've had in the past couple of years come to surface, and it makes it easier for the people to make those decisions because it's right at our fingertips. And it's something that, like you mentioned, we as fitness professionals have to educate people, because a lot of people don't have that education. A lot of people go through school and they only teach, one sector in a class of nutrition, and it's very, very basic. They don't touch on, what you need to eat and consume every single week to maintain, a healthy gut, or to maintain optimal brain cognitive function,
or even how to read a nutrition label.
Exactly. They slap it on, a section of a book, and, you read it for a couple seconds and then you move on. And they don't prioritize health and nutrition as much as they should in schooling now. And that's where the lack of education comes. And then, like I mentioned, you have all these social media platforms, and there's so much information on there as well that it gives people analysis paralysis. So now they're like, well, wheat bread's bad, no, white bread's bad, or this is bad and this is bad. So it's like, well, all these things are bad. Well, I'm just gonna eat whatever now because I just see all this stuff in front of me and I don't know what to do. I'm trying to learn, but there's just too much on it. So I think that's another thing as well. Is just too much information can sometimes be bad. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
I think for me, I'm somebody who can contain information and see all sides to it, But I think when somebody is coming online and trying to just get knowledge, and they see, like, I just saw a video the other day that was like, don't drink dairy, it's bad for you, and like it's gonna make you gain fat and this and that. And I'm like dude, like, and it showed up and it showed raw milk, which I have this whole ideology that raw milk is actually way better for you. But beside the point, all the comments were like, okay, like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, stop with this. And it's just, people always want to demonize specific foods. Like, oh, this is bad, this is terrible, this is terrible. And I try to get people to understand, yeah, there are good foods, yeah, there are bad foods, but is it bad if you're at your grandpa's birthday party and he's turning 80 and they're having a birthday cake, and it's bad though, it's a slice of cake, don't have that cake? But it's like, your grandpa's 80, you might not, no, that sounds bad. I was like, who knows, you might not be able to have another slice of cake with them. Like, you don't want to lose out on that.
That's all right.
I don't know if it's too much or not. Anyways, yeah, you know what I mean? If your grandpa's 80th birthday and you want to have a slice of cake, huh?
We keep it real here.
We keep it real righteous. But you want to make sure you have that slice of cake with your grandpa, because it's the moment. That's what I'm trying to say, is it's the moment that matters. You know what I mean? You don't want to skip out on that slice of cake. Is it a good food for you? Maybe not. But is it good in that moment? 100% it's good in that moment, because it makes that moment, well, without a pun intended, much sweeter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got the puns.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, dude. I don't know what it is, but it does make the moment that much sweeter. So in that context, I think you would agree, right? Like, it's not bad in that context. I know after you competed, you had sweets and you had things that you enjoyed, not because you didn't avoid it because it's bad, but you were able to enjoy it because you had this long time where you withstood that and had the strength to say no to it for so long and not have any balance with it. And then after you're done competing, like, hey, I'm gonna enjoy myself a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's about really having that self-control.
I had a guy ask me a question actually today, and he said, how do you control cravings at a social gathering or an outing when you go out? And I said, I usually just have a meal before, but if I want something at a social event, I'm going to have it. You know, I'm very consistent throughout the week. 95% of my week is all on my diet.
Yeah.
That 5% at that social gathering, you know, when I eat a slice of pizza or I have a burger and fries with a friend, that's not going to do anything to me. You know, it's demonized as bad food. It's unhealthy. It's the same thing like this Dutch Bros drink right here. You know, like I had one of these in like the past, 3 months. So it's like, I mean, yeah, you can consider this not a great drink to have, but it's like, I'm going to live a little, you know, I'm going to have one drink every few months and it's going to be fine. And
it's sugar free.
Yeah, I mean, it's sugar free, and then you got the people saying, "Oh, sugar free is worse for you than the regular sugary drinks."
It's all the oh my gosh, it's all the old heads. I think that, but I don't blame them because it's all these studies that came out that were saying, "Oh, artificial sweeteners can give you cancer," and they've already gone through and disproven that. I think I'm not against not using artificial sweeteners. Like if I can get a more natural sweetener, if I can get a more to the source type of drink or food, I'll go for that rather than an artificial sweetener. But I'm not going to be scared of it and say, "Oh, I can't have this." You know what I mean? And
because then you're just going to live your life walking on eggshells. I mean, you can say the same thing about your phone. You know, it's like having your phone in your pocket. There's like radiation and it causes cancer. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, do you have to like think about every little detail in your life that's going to kill you? Like, you can't live your life like that.
Even if it's right. Like, I mean, hey, I'm sure there is radiation from my phone that's probably not good for my body. Unfortunately, the generation we live in, everybody's going to have a cell phone. You know what I mean? And you can accept that something might be affecting you in a negative way, like a lot of people do on a day-to-day basis. And as long as you have the knowledge of it, and hey, little moments if you notice it, but don't let it consume you and kind of take over your life, you know, and stress you out. You know, that stress is going to kill you more than that radiation, or the stress is going to kill you more than, you know, the artificial sweetener in your drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're just going to stress over these little things. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong when it comes to nutrition, is they stress over so many little details. Like, I posted this question and answer thing on Instagram today, and I was answering these questions, and you know, people are overthinking a lot of things. You know, they're like, what waist trainer should I use, and what fat burner should I take? The biggest
hoax ever.
And I'm just like, what's your diet like? What's your training look like? Like, focus on the basics, the fundamentals first, and then worry about all the fancy things later on once you mastered the fundamentals. And for me, I'm a big advocate on just keeping it simple. You know, that's the biggest key to fitness in general, is just keeping it as simple as possible and just mastering the basics. That's all you need to know. Like, process of elimination. What are you doing right now in your lifestyle that's hindering you from reaching your fitness goals? Most people drink soda every day. Most people eat fast food every single day. Eliminate those two things out of your lifestyle and you're going to lose weight. You don't need to look at every single macro of this sugar-free drink. If you cut out the fast food every single day and you go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, you're going to lose weight. So stop obsessing over every little detail and just focus on the basics at hand first. Because a lot of people, they just want to skip to the fancy stuff, the stuff that looks good, that sounds good, the waist trainers, the fat burners, the supplements, the Ozempic, oh, should I take Ozempic? It's like, you haven't even started a diet yet. Why are you going to take Ozempic if you don't even know how to diet?
That's like definitely the biggest trend right now is Ozempic, that whole thing. And I've had people ask me about it, and I remember my mother-in-law saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I did my due diligence and did research. I'm like, okay, well, what is this medication? What does this do to you? What is it? It's a diabetic medication, and it infiltrates, but it affects your hunger hormone. The two hunger hormones, which would be ghrelin and leptin. One helps you understand how full you are. One helps you have hunger signals. You know what I mean? So, hey, if you need to eat, your body's going to remind you. And what that medication does is it inhibits those in a negative way, right? To a sense, right? It's positive because you end up losing weight. But when you kind of start messing with those hunger hormones, what happens is you're not hungry anymore, and you're full extremely fast. So all you did essentially was put yourself in a caloric deficit.
Exactly.
That's all you did. And the fact that it's math, like it's simple math, and I understand you don't have to track your calories for the rest of your life, but I think it's beneficial to an extent just to know what you're eating. You know what I mean? And I think it's less about this magic pill or this other waist trainer that I can do or this fat burner. And it's just more about having the ability to self-reflect and admit, wow, I have really bad habits. Like, and then thinking about why I developed those bad habits.
Yeah.
You know, I to be honest with you, like I've had so many discussions like that with my wife because I was raised in a family like for dinner we had Kool-Aid, man, and we didn't just have Kool-Aid. We had the 2 packets of Kool-Aid, right? Which are, if you want to go off about coloring, right? We already got all the color, which is another little like specific thing. But then you got like we put 2 cups of sugar, in a big jug of water, right? And
on a summer day,
yeah,
man,
dude. Those hit 100%. Like
after you go swimming, you got a sandwich waiting for you with some chips and a Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, and
Nothing
it was,
beats that.
and we would always have that for dinner. And I didn't even care or know, right? We always had chips in the cabinets. We always had all this stuff. My mom took care of her health really well. My dad was never really, he worked out a little bit back then, but he never cared too much about his health. And I was on that same road of like, yeah, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. And I was always a big eater, dude. I had never had self-control. If that food was around me, like I was going to eat it. Even to this day, I still have to put parameters and cause friction between me and specific foods because I know if that's in the apartment that me and my wife live in, like I'm going to eat it. And I'm not just going to eat a little bit of it. I'm going to eat the entire bag.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And like that's just the truth.
That's just the reality.
Dude, there's these little almost almond joys at Costco. And I try to shoot for more healthy options. And they're made with like 2-3 ingredients, like clean ingredients. I think I forgot what they're called. I'll send them to you and I'll have you pop it up on the screen. But it's they're like coconut almond joys because I love almond joys. And then they kind of made me feel better about it. Dude, they're in like the fun size and I get them in the big bag. Well, I put them in the fridge because I love my chocolate cold. So you can see how much I like it.
Oh yeah.
But I love my chocolate cold. So I grab it and eat it. And I'll have one. I'm like, oh, that was good. I'll have another one, and then I'll have another one, and I have another one, and it's like they're all because they're a little fun size. They're from Costco. They're like way better than they're a good brand. Almost like I forgot what they are, but I'm forgetting the name too. But it's a really like good quality brand, so it made me feel better about it. But even then, it's like I'm gonna still over consume on this. You know what I mean? So I grew up with like an unhealthy habits. And same thing with her. Like her family always bought processed food, always had sweets at the table, always had these things. And so it's hard when it's around to avoid it. You know what I mean? And it's something where I had to take it into my own hands and be like, okay, like I'm gonna, stop doing these things. I need to have the discipline to, avoid and cause friction between me and these other foods, because that's where it starts. Like you said, you can lose that first initial, you can lose your first 10 to 20 pounds just cutting off the things that you talked about. Like, okay, stop going out to eat. Okay, like cut out the processed foods and train 4 times a week. Watch what happens.
To go based off of what you were just saying with, having the candy in your house. You probably read this book. It's a very popular book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks a lot about environment and setting up your environment for success. So the way I deal with friction when it comes to those foods is just eliminating them from my house in general. And I know that's not feasible for a lot of people because they have kids, they have family, they got to have, those snacks in their house regardless because, kids aren't just going to be eating, chicken, rice and vegetables.
That's such a good point because I want you to keep going, but just to chime in really quick, how does somebody do that with their families, man? Because that's the hardest part. Like I see so many families or I've even helped people where it's like, hey, I want you to start hitting this meal plan, or I want you to start just adding these things into your day, maybe having better portions, this and that. And it seems like it's such a big effect on them. You know what I mean? And like how do you even go about, do you have to convince your spouse to go on that diet with you? Or
I think it helps a lot. So if you have a spouse that's on the same page as you, it's going to make a world of a difference when it comes to adherence to your plan. but I don't think it's necessary for someone to be successful with something. You always hear that saying, it's like you're a byproduct of your environment. The 5 friends that you hang out with, you're going to be more like them. So if you have, people around you that are eating a lot of bad foods, you're more than likely probably going to cave in and have those bad foods. But, as someone that's head of household, I would say, just teaching those things to your kids early on, like, hey, we're not going to eat candy every single day. We're not even going to really, have this in our house. Maybe just have healthier snacks, healthier alternatives, just educating your clients. Like, I've known people in the past who don't give their kids candy at all. They'll give them fruits instead if they want something sweet. So just teaching them those habits early on is going to help them develop those strong habits later on in life. And as a parent, as someone who wants to, project those good habits onto people around you, you have to take control of that. And, you can't just, it's convenient to go to McDonald's and get the kids food for the day. It's like, no, like, actually get the time to cook something healthy that tastes good for your kids. And then obviously teach balance to your kids as well. It's okay to have those foods once in a while, but let's not do it every single day.
This might make my dad sound really bad, but I love my dad for saying this when I was a kid, because to your point, I wish my dad would do it himself, but and I love that he would do this. But my mom was always a very loving mom, and she wanted to feed me and make sure I was fed well. You know what I mean? And I remember my dad, he's always been a big guy, and he's like, we're sitting at the table, and who knows, people might disagree with how he's saying it, but I'm fine, guys, I'm good. Just FYI. But he's like, hey, stop feeding my son so much food, he's getting fat. like he tells my mom that, and she she was good about kind of receiving that well. My mom didn't get defensive about it, but my dad literally, because I always had, similar to you. You said in the beginning of the podcast you were skinny, and that was your kind of confidence killer. For me, it was like I was overweight. That was my confidence killer, right? And like, so I didn't fit into clothes, or I didn't look as good as I wanted to look and stuff like that. So, and my dad could see that from a young age, that my confidence was low, and so my dad straight up told me and my mom, like, he can't handle that. He can't handle being overweight. Like, he cannot handle being overweight, because people are going to tease him, people are going to make fun of him, and he's going to cry, and he's going to get emotional, and he can't take it. He's like, he's like, so you need to stop feeding him so much. You know what I mean?
No, that's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, some people need to hear the truth, because a lot of people, they live their life in denial. They're like, oh, it's okay if I'm a little overweight. It's okay if I'm unhealthy. They make excuses for themselves, and you have to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, like, and someone who's very good at this is David Goggins. His story when he was 300 pounds, and he was like, he looks himself in the mirror, he's like, I'm fat, I'm overweight, like, you need to get it together and lose some weight, or you're gonna have a heart attack. And in his situation where he was in his pest control job, he was like, I was drinking a milkshake, and this was my life. He was like, I don't want to live life like this anymore. I got to do something about it. And sometimes you just got to call yourself out. As much as it stings and it hurts your ego, you got to do something about it. And I hate that it gets to a point where someone has to have something bad happen to them in order for them to make a change. I hate it. Like, if someone's health is at risk, they have to have a heart attack, or their blood work has to be extremely bad for them to make a decision like, I got to eat healthier, I got to exercise more now. It's like, why did you let it get to that point? You know what I mean? It's like, take control over your life.
Well, David Goggins is huge on ultimate ownership, taking ownership.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do with everything. At the end of the day, you're responsible for most of the things that happen to you in your life, whether it's good or bad. You are in control of your own actions, what you put in your mouth, what you do on a day-to-day basis. These little things add up over time, and it compounds. And for me, I'm a big believer in consistency compounds. If you're consistently eating bad foods over time, you're gonna lead to a lot of health problems later down the road. It's inevitable. But if you start young, like I mentioned to you, you teach the kids young, you teach your family, these good habits are going to stick with them for the rest of their life. And for me, growing up, I wasn't really taught these things. It was kind of self-taught, actually. And that's what's kind of interesting about, like psychology and understanding how the brain works and how you can rewire your brain to learn completely new things, even though they weren't taught at a young age.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're mentioning this, dude.
It's something that's eye-opening, because a lot of people are victim of their past traumas or their past lifestyle. I'm this way because of this. I'm the way I am because of my parents. It's like, you can't label yourself. You have to take ownership. You can make the change. You just have to decide to do that. And you can't blame anybody else for your wrongdoings, for things that, may have deterred you from your life goal or whatever that goal you may have. You have to take ownership of that and make a change.
And you have to believe you can. You actually have to believe you can make a change, because when you start blaming others for where you're at, there's some validity in that, right? Like, yes, your parents probably influenced you to get to this point, but you're an adult now. Like,
exactly.
You have the power to make different decisions. Your parents aren't forcing food in your mouth anymore. At some point, you have to take ultimate ownership, and you have to change your mindset and truly believe you can do something. Because if you keep saying, well, I'm this way and I'm stuck this way because of this situation that happened to me, then I guarantee you'll be stuck that way, because you're saying it and you're speaking it out loud. And the more you speak it, the more you believe it. And there's so many studies that show, when it comes to getting people to believe something, all you have to do is repeat it over and over and over. Even if it's not true, after you hear it after you hear it enough times, you're just gonna start believing it.
Yeah.
And there's like the story in the Bible where Jesus is walking on water, and Peter is like, okay, this is crazy. You're over here walking on water. And Jesus is like, yo, you can do it too. And then he's like, okay. So he steps off and he starts walking on water too. And Jesus and Peter are like, we're walking on water, dude. And then Peter looks down, he gets scared, and he stops believing, and then he falls. And the whole premise of the story is like, you need to have, you could have faith as small as a mustard seed, and you could do it. And it's like, that's what it comes to when it comes to believing in the Lord. But you can look in that in life as well. It's like, hey, if you just believed you could, you're capable of a lot more than you think. You're capable of getting out of the situation that you're in with your addiction to food or your gluttonous behavior when it comes to these specific sweets or candies, or moments where you go to a family party and there's pizza. Nobody forces that in your mouth. Like, you put it in there. And not that you can't have a slice of pizza. I want to preface that as well, but it's just understanding those things and actually understanding you really do have power. Like, right now I could watch a video about anything. I mean, it could just be something funny, and it could make me laugh. That video just changed my emotion, just changed my mood. Like, I'm now in a laughy mood because I just watched a funny video. So if you understand how easy it actually is to change your perspective, change your mind, change your emotion in one moment, like, it makes things a lot more simple. And I think it's just starting off with changing the frame of, I actually can do this. You know what I mean? And
acknowledging it. I think that's big, because a lot of people, like, when it comes to denial, they don't even acknowledge that they have a problem. That's the first step when it comes to breaking cycles, is acknowledging. And that's something that I try to implement in my own life, is acknowledging where I went wrong in a certain scenario, and calling myself out on it. How can I improve in this area? For me, it is a funny thing, because when it comes to social things, like social events, I've always been ridden with anxiety going to an event, even coming here. I was like, man, this is a podcast. What am I going to talk about? I'm kind of having anxiety, but at the end of the day, I acknowledge it and I understand, okay, it's okay to feel this anxiety, but you have to eliminate that fear of people judging you and people thinking oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or I don't like that guy for whatever reason. It's acknowledging the fact that if you don't care about what people say, you're going to eliminate that anxiety. You know what I mean? Because your anxiety comes from within. You know, it's all about your perception of others. You know, it like, oh, I don't want to go up to that girl because she's going to think I'm ugly or I'm weird, and I'm having anxiety going up to her. But it's like, she might not think that at all. You're just putting that into your own head. So that's where anxiety comes from. And, you know, once you acknowledge these things that cause that, then it's going to be a lot more stress-free in that sense.
Yeah. And so you mentioned anxiety a little bit. I think it's like, that's like such a big topic, you know, in our generation today. And people have so many issues with that. I think a lot of it has to do with social media, you know, to your point of like caring what other people think. I know for me, like that's an issue I have, you know, like before I post something, I think, oh, well, what would this coach in town think? Or what would this person, or what would this last client, or what would this, you know, person think? Or am I turning people away by putting this out there, whether it's about faith or this and that? And my strategy is I just like post and go, you know, I'll post it and then I'll get off and out of social media. I need to be better about going back on, commenting back, stuff like that. But that kind of helps eliminate my fear of what people might think about me. And that's something I've always thought about. And it's natural, right? Like we care about what our family thinks. We care about what our you know, friends think. And that's normal. Like it's good to care. Like that's from God, you know, like the ability to care. But how do we learn to not care about, you know, the things that really don't help us or make us better? You know what I mean? And it's like learning to you know, when you hear stuff, and learning to like, okay, well, that's something that's not from God. That's something that's from somebody who's envious, or that's something from somebody who doesn't believe the same thing or the same way I believe, you know, in myself or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, how can you, you know, shield those things and like look to something more positive and look to something that gives you a better perspective on life. You know what I mean? So that's where I feel like having morals, like being a Christian comes in, you know, and understanding like, man, some of these things that I tell myself are just lies, you know, and like, oh, I don't, you know, I'm not good enough, you know, I can't do this, or I don't believe in myself. And it's like, dude, like the longer you stay in that, the worse it's going to get as time goes on. And it's like, you got to find a way to get out of it. You know what I mean?
It's going to eat at you. It's going to eat you alive. And you made a great point right there. You know, I think when it comes to, you know, the fear of people judging you and, you know, just that perceived notion that people are going to hate you or say something about you, it's like at the end of the day, you know, these people's opinions, it doesn't really matter because you know who you are and what you stand for. You know what I mean? So if someone doesn't like you, then it could just be that it's on them. You know, they have this different perception of you, and you can't change that. You can't change someone's perception. I mean, you could based off of your actions, but you're not going to be liked by everybody. You can be on paper the most perfect person, and someone will still try to pick something out of you that's bad, that they perceive as bad. And it's like, well, that's not a bad thing, what they think it is. You know, so I think when it comes to perception of someone, it's all based off of that person. It's not who you are and your character. It's like, well, that person thinks I'm a bad person, and that's okay. You know, I can't change your perspective on me. All I can do is just be who I am.
And there's a book called, and I feel like we keep prefacing books in this podcast. I don't think this is like the third book we've talked about, but it's called How to Not Give a Frick About People.
Oh yeah.
And have you read that one or no?
I haven't read it, no, but I've known a lot of people who've read that.
It was
book.
It's a good book. A little overhyped in the extent of like, I feel like the entire book wasn't absolutely needed. I feel like it could have got the point across a little faster. But one of the things that stuck with me in that book was that not caring about what people think is not about genuinely not caring, because like we're human, we're supposed to care, but it's about being comfortable with yourself. It's about being comfortable with being indifferent from other people, understanding like you said, not everybody's gonna like me. I'm unique. I'm a different type of person. I'm a different type of individual, and the people that like me will gravitate towards me. The people that don't will not gravitate towards me. And being more comfortable with that and accepting of that, rather than, you know, thinking so hard about, oh well, who doesn't like me? Why don't they like me? This and that. You know what I mean? And so from that book, it was like, okay, I need to be more comfortable with myself. And so that's kind of been my mission as of late. I have this purpose, I have this passion to spread the word of God, but also help people be healthier versions of themselves, you know? But how do I do that without the fear of caring about what everybody else is thinking? It's like, okay, I got to be comfortable in my purpose and my passion. You know what I mean?
You have to love yourself too. I think that's a very underrated thing when it comes to just life in general, is loving yourself and just knowing and being comfortable with who you are as a person and what you have to offer the world and the people around you. That itself is going to build confidence, and it's going to allow you to be less stressed about what other people think, because it creates stability in yourself. Like I love me for my imperfections, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to sugarcoat things for yourself, but at the end of the day, it's like all my imperfections make me unique as a person. And if someone doesn't accept those imperfections, they don't deserve to be in my life. Like your friend group or my friend group, they love us for who we are and what we bring to the table as friends, as individuals. They like being around us. We feed off of each other, and that's why we're friends. But maybe someone else that wants to be a friend with, or that tries to be friends with you, like, Emilio, he's whatever, he's fake, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, well, we don't align with each other, so I can't convince you otherwise. Yeah. And you're comfortable with who you are, that you're not trying to be someone you're not. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're trying to like force yourself to be liked by everybody just because you want that recognition.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So I feel like we talked a little bit about anxiety. We talked a little bit about caring what people think. So, and you kind of touched on earlier, you dealt with anxiety for a long time. You said you still deal with it a little bit, right?
I do, yeah.
Is that a day-to-day thing that you have to try to conquer, or is it something that you've mastered to an extent? Or
I think when it comes to anxiety, action really alleviates it. Just saying yes to things that scare me. So like, for example, this podcast, I'll refer back to that. When you told me, hey Jay, are you free? I could have made it up an excuse and be like, Emilio, this week's not the week. I have a lot going on. I could make an excuse.
And I would have believed it.
And you would have believed it, because you don't know what my schedule is like. So it's like, you would have believed it, and we would have prolonged this thing for months. And maybe I would have never gone on this podcast. Who knows? But I was like, I got to face my fears of talking in front of a camera. And all my friends can attest to this. I am awful. Like my friend Ryan, he filmed me the other day at Iron Office. He was like, dude, this is like your 20th take on this video. It's like a 30-second clip. And it took me like 20 tries.
Have you ever tried having a script?
I don't really care for scripts because I feel like it's not genuine.
I get you. So I feel like I was recording a video for my clients to put on my app, and as I was doing it, it was literally just a video on how to check in. But I don't know why that day, on that Monday, I was I was so anxious, dude, and I could not get it done. And I'm like, this sucks. I literally had to go in my notes and type out an entire script just so I could and it looks natural just to get it off, because it was like, man, dude, I can't even handle this right now. Like, a script sometimes does help, and you can still be genuine because you're genuinely writing the script, and it's like, it helps a little bit.
I think with the script, if you read it out loud and you're not saying it word for word, if you're practicing what you're gonna say, then that's good. But if I was putting a script right here in front of me and I was just reading off of it the whole time,
true,
this podcast would be awful. They're gonna be like, why is this guy just staring at a script the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, he's not even looking at you. He's not even having any body language, any emotion. He's just robotic looking at a script the whole time. It's not genuine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're genuine about your approach and you just practice it over and over again, then a script does help. And it's all about building confidence. And it's just, confidence comes from repetition over a long period of time. It's like, you go into the gym for the first time, you're not going to be confident. You're going to be like, what the heck? There's so much things that I have to do. Where do I start? And then as you go more and more and more, you become more confident in the area. Oh, okay, I know exactly where this is. Oh, I'm familiar with this machine. Oh, I know where to go now because I have a set plan. It's like you build confidence after doing the motion or the thing that you need to do over and over and over again. And to me, this is step one of getting over that anxiety of talking in front of a camera, getting better at talking to a camera or talking to someone face to face, just doing podcasts like this. And to me, I'm going to suck. This is probably going to suck for me. People are going to watch this and be like, dude, this guy's awful at podcasts. Like, don't have him on again. But, for me, it's like, it's going to suck. I have to go through the suck in order for me to get better. Mm-hmm. And that's just the learning curve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can refer it back to, kind of going to go off topic a little bit right here. But I started jujitsu 3 months ago. And I was so bad at it when I started. I was awful.
Well, especially because you have all this muscle, it's probably hard for you to move your body quickly and understand those things.
And a lot of it's ego, because I'm like, I'm a fit person. I have muscle. I'm strong. Mm-hmm. These guys that weigh like 50 to 80 pounds lighter than me are just throwing me around. And I'm just like, man, I am so bad at this. But then as I kept going, I kept showing up, no matter how bad I sucked, I got better and better and better. And it's to the point where I'm like, okay, I actually know what I'm doing now. Like, I can go in there with full confidence and know exactly how to maneuver someone, how to choke someone out, whatever the case may be. But it's just building that confidence. And to me, this podcast was that first step in this realm that I have to build.
Yeah, so you have to face those things, or else you'll never build the confidence. You're not going to sit in a room and just envision yourself doing something and then build the confidence to do it. Like, you have to actually do it.
Yeah.
And put the reps in, like you said. Like, I tell people that all the time when it comes to their training. It's like, okay, yeah, like, you look at Chris Bumstead, and he's one of the best bodybuilders, and you look at how he does 225 on squats, right? Like, if I can do 225 on squats for however many reps, let's say 5 to 10 reps, but it's not going to look the same when Chris Bumstead does it. And it's the same weight, you know what I mean? Yeah. And we're both able to do it. But for some reason, when he does it, man, it just looks like it's like on a Smith machine.
Yeah.
It's like butter. And it's like, how is he moving so smooth? How is he getting so deep on his squat? How is he moving like that? And it just looks different. And the reason why is because the amount of squats that I've done, whether that's however many thousand, he's done just that much more.
He's probably done double or triple the amount.
Yeah, he's put some grease on it. Like, he's worked on it. You know what I mean? And it's like putting in the reps, putting in the time, and really mastering the movement, but always having an approach of, how can I get better? How can I do more? How can I do more? And who knows, maybe another 10 years, his squat is going to look even that much more better. But, as much as people want to come into the gym and think, oh, yeah, it's just working out. It's just lifting weights. And, yeah, like, sometimes you go on a machine and you just push it forward. Or sometimes you go on a machine and you just pull it back. But how are you feeling when you do that? Like, are you feeling it in your arms when you should be training your back? Or, are you feeling it in your chest when you should be feeling it, in your triceps? You know what I mean? Or whatever the case is. And it's like, actually thinking about how you're doing these things, because I see a lot of people who go to the gym and they just lift weights. And I mean, if you want to do that, that's great. I mean, because it's better than doing nothing, for sure.
Exactly.
Right? 100%. I agree. I think that's a positive thing. But if you're going in, I feel like you got to go in with an intention, a mindset on how can I improve and get better with these movements, and actually, have a goal behind why I'm here, why I'm doing it. And I feel like if you have that goal, typically people come out a little bit more successful. You know what I mean? But like to your point, it's like about putting in those reps, and you'll eventually get better. You know what I mean? And so it's something that I agree with 100%.
Yeah, I mean, putting in the reps, like you mentioned, and we've been talking about, is beneficial to every aspect that you do in life. Whether it's business, for me, I've been in business, this is my 7th year now. And at first it's like, man, like, how do I train a client properly to get them to their, desired goal? And then now it's like, I can train, 8 clients a day, and it's like, I don't even have to think about it anymore. But one client back then was just like, it was so impossible. I was like, how am I going to do this? How does this person even trust me right now? I'm this like 19-year-old kid that is trying to train, these 30, 40-year-old people, and they're paying me money that I'm not even used to having. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like, how do I go upon doing this? And I think it's just repetition over time, and doing it for so many years. It got me equipped to, learning and going through the trial and errors and understanding what my weaknesses are, and trying to better myself through those trials and tribulations.
And you've been doing this for 7 years now.
Personal training, 7 years.
And dude, like when we had our conversation at Dutch Bros, which we've mentioned earlier on in the podcast, it was crazy to hear somebody as successful as you to say, I'm still working on stuff, you know? And there's people who've been only training for a year or two and will be like, yeah, I know I'm good. I don't need I don't need a coach. Maybe you don't, you know, nobody needs a coach. Like having a coach can be a luxury for some people, but to say you can't learn anything from that person, like, dude, I can learn anything from anybody, you know, and I can tell, dude, you have that mindset.
I always extrapolate things from everybody. No matter who I meet, you can always learn something from someone based off of their prior experiences, even if it's a negative experience. Like if someone has had a negative experience in the past that I can learn from to prevent that from happening to me, I'm going to learn from that person. Even though they might not be a good influence. It's like, okay, it's reverse engineering now. How can I prevent that from happening to me? You know, it's just the inverse of everything. How do you fail at a business? You know, you neglect your clients. You just show up late. And it's like, well, do the inverse of that. Show up on time. Don't neglect your clients. Make sure your customer service is on point. So you can learn from every single person, whether it's through success or their failures. You just have to be open-minded about it.
Yeah, and I think it's just about genuinely caring for the person, you know? Like, why are they here and what is their goal? And how can we not just put them on a meal plan, but actually be on the journey with them, you know? And that's like the biggest challenge for a lot of people, you know what I mean? And
I think, you know, putting yourself in their shoes is a big thing. What I mean by that is you can't treat a client like you treat yourself. You know, for me, I've spent years bodybuilding. I can't train a 50-year-old man or a 50-year-old woman like a bodybuilder. I can't make them go and squat 3 plates. They're not going to be
imagining that.
they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to crumble. You know what I mean?
yeah,
like,
you should get the AI ChatGPT to you should try to make an AI image showing like a grandpa squatting.
Or I'll just find an actual video of it happening.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't treat someone like you would do it yourself. You know what I mean? Like you have to tailor the program around who your audience is. You know what I mean? So I think that's where a lot of people and a lot of trainers go wrong, is they treat everybody like the same. It's not personalized. So they're like, well, this mom of 3 is going to be eating chicken, rice, and broccoli every single meal, and she can't have any cheat meals throughout the week. And it's like, that's not feasible for her.
Yeah, so something that I came across recently was really, as coaches, it's our responsibility to educate these clients to understand how to make it a lifestyle. And I think it's important as coaches to look at ourselves like educators, because I think sometimes as coaches we can just be like, oh, here's the meal plan, here's the program, just follow it, right? But it's like actually getting into the details, you know what I mean?
It's always the why. You know, you have to explain everything that you do and all your processes. And you can't just say, do it because I told you so. It's like, no, you have to back it with research or evidence that you've done, or someone who's had that prior experience. I've had a client that had your similar situation. So this is what I think is going to help you based off of their progress. You know, what worked for them. They have very similar body types as you, or very similar goals, whatever the case may be. You know, you can relate it to something, but you can't just say, because I said so and I'm the authority. It's like, no, it has to go deeper than that. You have, like you said, you have to educate your clients on the reasonings behind your processes and why you do things. I'm always explaining to people in person, especially when I'm in the gym training them. They're asking questions like, why do you put your thumbs around the bar and not, you know, inside? Or, you know, just little cues like that. And I have an explanation for all of that.
I just like to do it. That's not a good answer.
No, that's not a good answer.
Yeah.
They're just going to be like, okay, so is this right or wrong? Like, what do you mean you just like to do it? Like, I mean, I like to do a lot of things, you know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, you know what I mean? So it's just educating your clients and making sure that they're understanding it from all different perspectives, and not just at a surface level where you're like, oh, if it feels good, then do it.
Well, like recently I just made like a bunch of videos on basically educating my clients and why that's there, like when it comes down to like tempo. What is tempo? Well, here's a video explaining how, and like, you know, this is why I have that on the training portion of the app. You know, hey, like right here where you click on the training tab, it'll show, you know, your tempo. This is what tempo is. So there's now we address that question, you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not just going to put tempo there and assume that they know or make them have to look it up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because that's what I'm supposed to be here for. And those videos and things weren't always there, but as a coach, it's about understanding how you can improve, right? Being open-minded and saying, okay, like when a client leaves or something happens, yeah, it could be just because they didn't follow the diet. It could just be because they were lazy, whatever, right? You can create all these excuses as a coach in your head as to why those clients might have not stuck around. But if you're self-evaluative and if you're good and you are actually somebody who wants to be a good coach, you'd ask yourself, even if money was low, these things happened in their life, what could I have done to make it so good that like they didn't want to leave? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it's like,
that's a great point. and to piggyback off of that, I think asking the client directly is even better. Even if it stings, you know, it's like when you read Yelp reviews online, it's like, oh, you know, if you're a business and you have a negative Yelp review and it's like, oh man, like this person had a bad experience. Like I want to erase this off my thing. Like I don't want people to see this, but it's like you take it from a negative perspective and you turn it into a positive. Like, okay, this person had a bad experience. What can I do to improve this experience so that another person won't leave another bad
You have
review?
to fight it with positivity, almost to your point, like fight the negativity with the positivity in any business or in everything in life. Like you're going to have somebody who's hating or somebody who's negative or somebody who just didn't follow the plan or somebody who, like we mentioned earlier, you just can't take ownership. And they're going to blame everybody else but themselves. And so they might comment or, you know, leave a review that's negative, and it might not even been your fault.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, how can I make even these people love my program, have all their questions answered, you know, have all these things set up? And so being a coach who cares, you have to always be asking yourself questions like, okay, you know, how can I make this easier on the person? You know what I mean? Making ebooks or doing whatever you can to just provide resources for the clients, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And asking those questions to your clients, how can I be better for you? You know, it's like, how can I improve my service? And, you know, I think that's a big feedback thing that you can get as coaches is always, you know, taking feedback and saying, hey, what can I improve? What can I make things easier for you as a client to adhere to better? And I always ask these questions to clients, like especially like my in-person ones and the online ones too. Like, what can I do to make your meal plan easier? What can I do to, you know, help serve you better in terms of like communication? Or, you know, writing out the programs or uploading them on a certain day. Like, what can I do better to make it easier for you? And it's all about customer service and making the customer happy. And if you've exhausted all options and someone's still like telling you like, you're not good or whatever, and it's like, okay, I get it. At that point, it's like, well, you know, how much can I possibly do to make this person happy? If the person's never going to be happy, then it's like, well, I mean, that's just one out of a bunch of people. Yeah. So I understand that perspective as well, because even, you know, the best businesses have those small amounts of people who are negative and have those negative feedbacks to those businesses. But I mean, it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah, dude. I feel like it was funny because I expected us to talk so much, which we have talked a lot about nutrition and food and training, but a lot of it has been more about mindset and like mental health a little bit as well. Not that we're mental health experts at all, you know what I mean? Because we're not. So
we're just gonna phrase that right now.
Yeah, we're
but
not at all. But I think but I think just talking about, hey, this is how, you know, we were able to get through it. Maybe that could help somebody who's similar to us.
It's all personal experience. You know, I'm not advocating, you know, these things or like, this is the end all be all. This is what's going to help you change your life. It's like, no, it's what works for me and it's what works for you. And this is our experience when it comes to this stuff. And that's what we share. And that's why basically we're on this podcast, is to share our experiences and our life lessons and what we've learned over the course of our lifetime and what what we did to build our businesses, what we did to accumulate this knowledge when it comes to training, nutrition with our clients. It's all just a learning process, and I think we have to look at it in a different lens too.
So to kind of like shift gears, I saw you're posting a lot on your story this morning about all these questions you have. Is there another question that you got that kind of stuck out to you?
I would say like they're all pretty like surface questions, like waist trainer questions, and what supplements to take. And I was like wanting someone to ask me like a very deep question. I got one that was pretty good. It was about like digestion. What foods, like he was saying that a high protein diet caused a lot of bloating for him. And I was like, well, first we need kind of more context when it comes to what's causing the bloating. And I was like, it's all about process of elimination. So what on your diet is making you feel bloated? Because just because a food is deemed as healthy and good for you doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you and your body. So like egg whites, for example, like I use that as a reference point. For me, when I eat egg whites, I get gassy, I get bloated, and I just feel awful after eating them. And they're deemed as a really good protein source. It's zero fat, without the yolk, no cholesterol, it's just all protein. So it has all these good benefits to it, but it just doesn't sit well in my stomach. And for some other people, they might digest egg whites really well. So it all just depends on what works for your body and what you digest well. So I was like, you need a little bit more context, but to start off with is the process of elimination and making sure that you're going back and reverting back to what you're eating on a daily basis and pinpointing exactly what is causing that indigestion that day. So if it's steak or, maybe ground turkey, that's causing bloating issues, then maybe switch it out for beef or a different source that's going to help ease that digestion a little bit.
Yeah, I remember I've experienced bloating from eating specific meats and maybe over consuming on like chicken or and it's like for some reason my body just doesn't digest that very well. I think, and the crazy thing about it is that this science is very new. Like people didn't really pay attention to, digestion, their GI tract, their gut microbiome, all these things that actually affect nutrient absorption, and how your body takes in food and excretes it, not just excretes it, but also utilizes it. You know what I mean? And a lot of just like new science is coming out. So it's stuff that, hey, I don't blame people for not knowing or understanding, but I'd love to be here to be the one to educate you and say, hey, let's start watching out for these specific things, give me a rundown of your diet for the whole day and let's like keen in on what might be causing you the most digestive distress, I think a lot of people usually tend to go towards like fiber, oh, I'm not getting enough fiber because, you look up on Google, it's like, oh, fiber. And it's like, well, maybe you're just eating foods that just aren't digesting well, that just don't sit well with your stomach. And there's test that you can take online, like Everlywell, I think is a really popular one where they basically test for all your like intolerances, and then all your all the foods that your body does tolerate well and all that kind of stuff. So if anybody's like looking for that, I would say go or just go with your doctor. I'm sure they have a test that can show you the intolerances just to get down to it quicker. But to your point, if you want something that's free, just do the process of elimination. Start off your day, drinking just water, maybe like cut out food the day before after 8, and just so you start the next morning fresh, drink water and kind of pay attention each time you eat something to how your body reacts.
Absolutely.
I remember when I would have like too many eggs, I would just immediately go to the restroom, immediately. And it was like, why do I do that? And then I just stopped doing that because I was like, obviously my body's not enjoying this. This is the first thing I eat in the morning and my body's just saying, no, stop. Go to the restroom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like paying attention to those things, and people just don't pay attention to how their body actually reacts, because your body is an amazing thing that God gave us, because it gives you hints and signals and ideas on why, on how these foods might be actually affecting your body. It's like, hey, you're eating this food, here is a rash, or here is hives on your neck, or here is you going to the restroom really quickly, or here's bloat, here's things like the inflammation, and their body gives you all these signals, but people just choose to ignore them. You know what I mean? And don't think about them.
I think a lot of, to your point too, a lot of people think that nutrition is a lot of black and white, and there's no absolutes when it comes to nutrition. Like, just because, like you mentioned, eggs are healthy and it's a great source of protein doesn't mean that you're going to respond well to them. So don't look at nutrition as like black and white. Like, this food's healthy, this food's not healthy. This food is, high in nutrients, so I have to eat it. Like, this is a must to put in my diet. You'll always see people post like, these are the things you should be eating on a day-to-day basis. But then if one of those food sources causes bloating and gas and you just don't respond well to it, then you don't have to eat that. Like, so many people think that there's this like hierarchy of foods that are just, you have to eat so much of it, and you must consume this or else you're never gonna get lean. It's like, no, there's so many different things you can eat. You just have to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, and then also just like actually knowing what you're eating, because a lot of people say, don't eat fats because they're so high in calorie, and it's like, well, fats are really important. Like, fats are really responsible for your hormone production. They're super important and vital, brain function, and vital for your health. And it's like, you shouldn't just avoid fats because they are the highest in calorie on the calorie chart. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, fats are good for you. Have the right type of fats. Have good sources of fats. You know what I mean? Because you want to get your fats from candy bars and stupid crap. But getting it from good sources and that actually helps out. So I think people do kind of avoid fats because it's so high in calorie, and if they're trying to lose weight, it could be something that hinders them. But as in, no, you could have ground beef. You can have 80-20, 85-15 ground beef. You just got to account for it. Understand that, hey, like, if I eat too much of this, like, it's gonna look bad on my body, right? So, but you can have. I try to tell people you can have a lot of things. You can have everything, and there's a lot more good than there is bad. You know what I mean? And it's just about having that balance and understanding what at what point or what moment should I consume this or that. You know what I mean?
Going off the topic of like satiety and like just staying full just throughout the day, a lot of people, they don't take into consideration food volume. So this is another thing that I always teach my clients is whenever I give them a diet, like whenever I give someone new that just starting a program, they're like, Jay, this is a ton of food. Like, I'm not used to eating this much food. And it's really not a ton of calories. It's not like they're bulking or, eating an absurd amount of calories. They're eating, a decent amount of calories that they're still able to be in a deficit, but it's just so high in volume, and they're not used to eating high volume foods. They're used to eating foods that are low in volume, like
large candy, McDonald's French fry and a double cheeseburger.
Exactly. Chips, chips are very low in volume and high in calories. You can eat 8, I think a serving size is like 7-8 chips, and it's like 160 calories. I could eat the whole bag and I'm still hungry after. But if you eat a well-balanced, nutritious meal, you're going to feel really full, and you're probably going to intake the same amount of calories as the whole bag, and your hunger is going to be completely different. So I think that's what a lot of people have to take into consideration is adding more volume to your nutrition. So things that will add more volume are carbohydrate sources like oatmeal, that contain more fiber, potatoes versus rice. Potatoes are going to fill you up more than rice will. Just these things in general, like fish too. Fish is very light, but you can eat a lot of it and still be low in calories because of how high the protein content is, how low the fat content is.
Like shrimp, super low calorie. Shrimp is like a hack.
Yeah, oh yeah. So you can do things like that to keep you fuller for longer. If you're someone who's has a lot of cravings, I tend to have my bigger meals later on in the day. As counterproductive as that may sound to some people, because a lot of people are conditioned to think that they can't eat, at 6-7 p.m.
Or breakfast should be your biggest meal of the day.
Yeah, or that too. They have a lot of misconceptions when it comes to things. And whatever your goals are, if you are in a calorie deficit, it doesn't really matter too much what time of the day you eat. A lot of people are so big on intermittent fasting now. They're like, oh, intermittent fasting is the best way to lose body fat. And it's like, well, it's great for some people, but all you're doing is just condensing down your window of eating.
Right.
You're not changing the diet at all. You're just eating instead of eating all day long, you're only eating for 8 hours.
intermittent fasting is an interesting one because I've had a lot of clients be like, oh, like, intermittent fasting, what's your opinion? Or I've just had people ask me, and I did intermittent fasting every day for a long period of time. It worked for me because I had such a big appetite and I could put so much food down so quickly, you know what I mean? But what I realized was with intermittent fasting, it could actually be a good tool for certain moments, but it's not something that's exactly sustainable because sometimes you want to have breakfast or sometimes you want to have lunch. You know what I mean? You don't want to have to postpone your food. But I think what intermittent fasting did help me realize was what true hunger was, like in a weird way. Is because I think sometimes we kind of just say, oh, I'm hungry. I need something to eat. I'm hungry. And it's like, no, dude, you're just craving something.
Or you're just bored.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Probably the biggest one, just being bored.
Yeah. I mean, most people, they claim to be hungry at the end of the day. Like, oh, I'm coming home. I ate a meal, but then I'm laying in bed. Let's grab some popcorn. Or let's grab a bag of chips so we can watch Netflix and snack. It's like, you just ate a meal. Why do you want a bag of chips? You're not hungry. You're just bored and you want something to munch on while you're watching Netflix with the wife. You know what I mean? So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they start to snack and they mindlessly eat, and that's where the calories start to add up. And then to the point, the high calorie foods that are low in volume, I mean, it's just going to be destructive to their goals.
Yeah. And with intermittent fasting, it just basically taught me like, okay, like this is what really like real hunger feels like. And this is when I'm just kind of craving something. So for somebody who just maybe wants a challenge or wants to try something new, and there's a lot of new science behind intermittent fasting and the different states that it can put you in as far as, ketosis and autophagy or all these fancy things and terms or whatnot. But at the same time, like, if you can't sustain it for a long period of time, it's not going to be something you need to do. And again, if it's something you want to like intermittently, include into your fitness repertoire, I guess, you know what I mean? Like I do it on days where I know I'm going to have a big meal with my friends and family later on. So maybe I fast till about 12, then I have high protein foods throughout like the middle of the day, maybe like 400 calories worth of just like protein or 600 calories worth of just protein, so that I know when I go out with my friends and family, I have all these calories to mess with, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I still prioritize protein, but I'm able to also have fun, kind of get those nice carbs and fats in, when I go to those family gatherings or whatnot. So
yeah. So you use intermittent fasting as a tool, basically,
right? Yeah,
based off of your schedule.
Exactly.
That's very smart. I think a lot of people can utilize that, especially with their busy schedules. So I mean, I think intermittent fasting is great for people who work very long hours. So like, for example, nurses, they could probably benefit from intermittent fasting. You know what I mean? So I think it all is just person dependent. If you're someone who works at a desk job all day long, maybe intermittent fasting is not great for you because you're constantly thinking about food the whole time. You know what I mean? And then it's right at your disposal. You know, you can just, if you work from home, the fridge is right downstairs. Yeah. You're breaking your fast. You know what I mean? So I think it just depends on the person. If you're a very busy individual, then you could probably benefit from intermittent fasting. Yeah. But to each of their own. I think every diet works well based off of the person's preferences and how sustainable it is long term. Me personally, I don't think I can sustain intermittent fasting for a long period of time, so I personally don't do it. Yeah. Someone asked me a question today, and they were like, "What do you think about the carnivore diet?" And I was like, I think it's great if you can sustain it. I don't think it's a bad diet. I don't think it's a wrong diet. I know there's a lot of scientific evidence, backing it, and maybe there's a lot of like Netflix series now that demonize eating meat. I forgot what that documentary was called. Was it What the Health? I think it was called. Yeah, it's like a vegan documentary. So there's different diets for different people, but at the end of the day, it's just about long-term sustainability and what you can adhere to the most and what you enjoy. Don't worry about what's hot right now or what's the latest fad diet. It's like, no, just do what you enjoy. You know, for me, I love carbs. I'm a big carb eater. I can't go without carbs. I love bagels, rice cakes, rice. I'm a big advocate. It fuels my performance, especially since I'm so active. So to me, that's going to be more beneficial for my goals and my adherence and sustainability long term.
I love potatoes. Potatoes is my thing. I can have potatoes. Like my wife has been making these burger bowls. So like potatoes with beef and a little bit like she makes this like homemade In-N-Out sauce, which I do, you know, track so, just because I want to know. And it tastes so good. And like we have some like a little bit of like hot sauce with it, which is like negligible, like 0-calorie hot sauce. And those things, those foods are just so much more like satiating. And like you said, like I'm a big carb eater. Like I grew up in a Mexican household where we had tortillas and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So
beans and rice.
Yeah, beans
meal.
and rice, everything nice. You know what I mean? So and so like I was able to enjoy that pretty much. But dude, so today ended up being just like a great conversation with like everything, man. We talked about from nutrition to like anxiety to, you know, just where we're at in our lives and our business. So I hope that people were able to like really listen in and get something from it. You know what I mean? And you did a great job, dude. For somebody who's experiencing anxiety about being on a podcast, like I can't tell. You know what I mean? So
I can tell. I'm feeling it right now,
dude. No, dude, you're doing great, man. I feel like we're both gonna grow a lot from this. Obviously, because you just have so much knowledge and wisdom and experience, you know what I mean? And so whenever you speak, I want to listen, you know? But also, I hope that I was able to provide you a place to grow and become, you know, more like a better individual, you know, getting out of your comfort zone, you know what I mean? So thanks for coming here and getting out of your comfort zone with me, man. Like, it really does mean a lot.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on the podcast. It's a great setup. You guys made it comfortable for me. First podcast ever, and I mentioned before, I was feeling nervous about it. I could have done everything I could to push this off and to make excuses not to come, but I told myself I'm just gonna show up, and if it sucks, if I do bad, if I'm a bad guest, then hey, at least I showed up and I tried. You know, I'm gonna get better as I go, and it's just a learning experience, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
We definitely have to bring you on a second time at some point. I'm gonna bring you and Austin both on another time.
Oh, that would be great.
I feel like
together.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe together.
Do it together.
You think so?
We should do that, man.
That was a good idea.
I think we should do it.
Well, maybe I will. Because I was thinking one. Yeah. Maybe I will. Well, maybe I will do one with you guys together, but I would also like to do one with you guys separate again, just because I feel like we had such good conversations. But I feel like we need another podcast with each other, because then you can have something to compare that one to versus this one, so you can know if you improved or not.
Couple months down the line, you know I better have these podcasts down by now. I can't be drawing no blanks anymore.
I learned my lesson from last podcast, so I want to go ahead and plug Jay Cordero. See, I still fumbled the bag. I still messed up. I want to go ahead and plug at Jay Cordero. You can find him on Instagram. I don't know if you have TikTok.
I don't have TikTok.
He's slipping on the TikTok, but
I know.
He has Instagram.
You're not missing.
So and he does post some funny content, as well as some really valuable content. You know, so like you posted this one video about hot Cheetos one time. That one was a good one.
That was a little skit that I did. That was funny.
Make sure to you know, follow him. And he always has something to say on his stories as well. You can ask him any questions. And yeah, besides that, man, again, thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much, guys.
We'll talk again soon, dude.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Heck yes,
Appreciate
let's get it. Cool.
That was good, man.
That was sick.